The galaxy was not a place of peace. It was a wide ocean of stars filled with proud empires, vast trade routes, and civilizations older than memory itself. Yet for all their power, for all their knowledge and armies, there came a day when the galaxy fell into silence. Not because of war, not because of diplomacy, but because of fear. It began at the edge of the Orion Arm, where explorers from the Traylon Union discovered a structure drifting in the void. At first it looked like a derelict station, ancient and lifeless. But when they drew closer, the station awoke. It was not a station at all. It was the Shroud. The Shroud was a machine older than any record. No one knew who built it or why it was left floating in space. What they did know was simple. When the Shroud activated, it released waves of psychic energy that touched every living mind in its range. And that touch was not gentle. It was terror itself. Entire Traylon crews froze inside their ships. Their claws dug into metal consoles as their bodies shook. Officers screamed but could not command. Even automated systems slowed as though the terror seeped into circuits. Ships drifted powerless until they crashed into one another. Only one vessel managed to send out a warning before it too went silent. When other empires sent fleets to investigate, the same thing happened. The Veiled Dominion, proud masters of bioengineered warriors, trembled in their armored suits until they collapsed. The Jerian clans, known for their strong discipline, could not fire a single shot before their ships drifted helplessly. Even the great Tharkul Collective, with its vast war engines, found their machines paralyzed when the pilots inside screamed and begged to be taken home. The Shroud did not fire weapons. It did not move from its place. It simply existed. Its presence spread fear, like light from a star, and the galaxy could do nothing to stop it. Months passed. The Shroud's influence grew wider. Worlds near its system evacuated, populations fleeing before the fear waves could touch them. Trade routes bent around it, costing empires billions. Pirates thrived in the chaos, raiding weakened sectors. But even pirates would not approach the Shroud. No one dared. At last, the Galactic Council called an emergency gathering. Dozens of species came together inside the Grand Hall on Laura Prime, a city world known for diplomacy. Representatives sat in a great circle, their eyes locked on the hologram of the Shroud floating at the center. For the first time in centuries, every empire had agreed on one thing: the galaxy was in danger. Yet as the meeting began, silence ruled the chamber. Ambassador Rello of the Ashel, a tall being with crystal-like skin, finally broke the stillness. His voice was soft, but it echoed across the hall. The Shroud cannot be destroyed. We have tried. No fleet can approach it. No pilot can resist its waves. Every attempt ends in the same islands, drifting ships and broken crews. We are facing something beyond our strength. Others muttered in agreement. The Zalorians hissed through their long jaws. We sent 10,000 ships. None returned. Even our drones failed. The Shroud spreads its touch through the link of command. It corrupts orders. It corrupts courage. A murmur of fear ran through the chamber. Some representatives openly trembled, as though the very mention of the Shroud might summon its power. Ambassador Liaron of the Kaleri rose, her voice sharp. If we cannot defeat it, then we must contain it. Seal that sector. Burn every stargate that leads near it. Let no one travel there again. Containment will not work, Rello replied. His crystal eyes dimmed. The waves spread farther each month. Sooner or later, even Laura Prime will feel its touch. The silence deepened. For all their vast empires, the greatest minds of the galaxy could think of nothing. Pride had broken. Courage had failed. They trembled in silence. But then a small voice spoke. It was not one of the great powers. It came from a minor seat in the council, a seat that many ignored. It came from a human. The human delegate, Captain Elias Reese, rose to his feet. He wore a simple uniform, not elegant robes or shining armor like the others. His voice was calm, but his words carried weight. Then perhaps it is not strength you need. Perhaps it is persistence. The hall turned toward him, Dozens of alien eyes fixed on the lone human. Whispers spread through the chamber. Deathworlder. That was the word many used for humans. They came from a planet where life clawed and fought to survive storms, predators, sickness, hunger. Two other species. Earth was a nightmare world. To its people, it was simply home. You cannot resist the shroud, hissed a Zalarian. Even our strongest warriors collapse. Your warriors, Elias said softly, are trained to be perfect, to never feel fear. That is why they fail. When fear touches them, they break, and humans will not break. Asked the Kalari ambassador, her voice mocking. You expect us to believe that? Of course we break, Elias answered. We shake. We cry. We freeze for moments that feel like forever. But we do not stop. That is the difference. We take another step, and then another. And even when we are afraid, we move forward. The council chamber was utterly still. You speak of madness, hissed the Veil representative. No sane being moves into the jaws of terror. Maybe, Elias admitted. But maybe madness is what the galaxy needs right now. Later, when the council adjourned, the whisper spread faster than any fleet. Across worlds, across stations, aliens asked the same question. Would the Deathworlders truly face the shroud? And in the darkness near Orion's edge, in the shadow of the machine, the stars waited. The shroud pulsed with its endless wave of fear, drowning every hope. Yet somewhere far away, a fleet of human ships prepared to launch. They were not the largest ships, nor the strongest. But they carried something the galaxy had forgotten. They carried the will to move forward. The galaxy trembled in silence. But soon, silence would break. The humans did not send a grand armada. They did not gather millions of ships or summon the largest dreadnoughts. Instead, the fleet that set out toward the shroud was small, barely 100 vessels. Frigates, cruisers, and a few heavy carriers formed the backbone of their expedition. To the mighty empires of the galaxy, it looked laughably weak. But to the humans, it was enough. From the observation stations built at the edge of the shroud's reach, alien fleets gathered to watch. They stayed well back, far from the waves of terror. Thousands of ships hung in orbit around a lonely gas giant, their sensors locked on the void where the shroud waited. And at the heart of it all, the humans advanced. Inside one of the larger human ships, the Resolute Dawn, Captain Elias Reese, stood at the bridge window. His crew moved quietly around him, running checks, monitoring life support, ensuring weapons were offline. They were not here to fight, not yet. They were here to move, report, Elias said calmly. Shroud influence detectable, his science officer replied. Fear levels minimal at this range. All systems stable. No crew failures, Elias nodded. He could feel it already, an invisible hand pressing at the back of his mind. It whispered things he did not want to hear. Images flickered in his imagination. Fire spreading across the bridge, friends screaming, his own heart failing. He clenched his fist, grounding himself. Fear was not new to him. Fear was just another storm. Across the galaxy, alien observers tuned in to the human broadcast. Every ship carried cameras and sensors, transmitting live. The Galactic Council had demanded transparency. If the humans failed, everyone would see. If they succeeded, if such a thing was even possible, then history would witness it. In the observation chamber of the Council itself, dozens of ambassadors watched the display. The Kolari ambassador folded her arms. They will not last 10 minutes. The Zalarian delegate hissed softly. Foolish Deathworlders. Always running toward death as though it were a challenge. But Ambassador Rello of the Ashol did not speak. His crystal skin dimmed as he stared at the feed. Deep inside, some part of him wanted to believe. The first human ships crossed into the shroud's direct reach. The waves struck like icy water, seeping into every mind aboard. Crew members stiffened. Some cried out, clutching their heads. Fingers trembled over controls. A few collapsed in their chairs. The bridge of the Resolute Dawn filled with the sound of heavy breathing and soft sobs. And yet, the ship kept moving. Engines roared, lights glowed steady, and the course did not change. Though fear gripped them all, not a single crew member abandoned their station. Those who could not move were steadied by others. Those who trembled were given quiet words of comfort. They were afraid, but they endured. Alien eyes widened across the galaxy. In the Veil homeworld, soldiers who had once collapsed under the Shroud's influence leaned closer to their screens, unable to believe what they saw. On Zalorian battle stations, commanders hissed in shock, and in the council chamber, the silence grew deeper. Whispered Laren of the Kalari, "They are all shaking. They are crying, yet they advance." Elias stood firm, though his heart thundered in his chest. He activated the comms, broadcasting a message to the galaxy. His voice was steady, even though his hands trembled. "This is the human fleet. We feel the fear. It is real, it is powerful, but fear is not the end. Fear is the beginning. And still we move forward." The words rippled across the galaxy. Translations spread instantly, carried by cum relays to 1,000 worlds. In crowded city squares, on silent ships, in military barracks, aliens listened. For some, the words sounded like madness. For others, like hope. Deeper into the shroud they went. The waves strengthened. Crew members sweated, shaking as their minds filled with nightmare visions. Some saw their families die before their eyes. Some heard voices whispering that they were worthless, weak, already defeated. Others felt their hearts pound so violently they thought it would kill them. Yet still, humans did not turn back. On the third day of their advance, one ship faltered. The stalwart Grace slowed, its engines weakening as half its crew collapsed under the psychic pressure. Fear had rooted them too deeply. But instead of abandoning the vessel, 2 other human ships linked tractor beams and pulled it along. They would not leave their comrades behind. To alien eyes, this was madness. But to humans, it was duty. "Fear makes you alone," Elias said in another broadcast. "But we are not alone. That is why we can keep going," the galaxy whispered. Across worlds, across stations, the question spread again. What kind of species are these Deathworlders? By the end of the week, the humans were deeper into the Shroud's range than any fleet had ever reached. Alien scientists monitoring the readings could hardly believe the numbers. "The waves here are 10 times stronger than any known point," one researcher muttered. "It should be impossible. They should all be broken by now." But the humans were not broken. They were battered, shaking, exhausted, but not broken. Ambassador Rello finally spoke in the council chamber. His crystal voice rang clear. "They do not resist fear as we do. They accept it. They carry it. And still they advance." The other ambassadors stared at him, unable to deny what they saw. For the first time since the Shroud awoke, the chamber was not filled with silence born of despair, but silence born of awe. Inside the Resolute Dawn, the crew gathered during a short rest cycle. Faces were pale, eyes sunken, but spirits remained alive. They shared stories of home, laughter in short bursts, songs whispered through tired throats. Fear was still there, always pressing, but together they found strength. Elias listened quietly, then rose to speak to them. "I will not lie. I am afraid. We are all afraid. But every step forward means something. Not just for us, for everyone watching. They think it cannot be done. They think no one can stand against the Shroud. Let's prove them wrong." A tired cheer rose from the crew. It was not loud, but it was steady. On the 10th day, the humans reached a distance so close that alien fleets had never even dared to imagine it. The Shroud loomed ahead, a massive construct of black metal and shifting light. It pulsed like a living heart, and every pulse sent another wave of terror through them. Some humans fell to their knees, whispering prayers. Others screamed, gripping their consoles with white-knuckled hands. And then something happened. One ship, the Valiant Star, stalled completely. Engines dead, crew half unconscious. It drifted, turning slowly toward the void. To every observer, it looked like the end. But on the bridge of the Resolute Dawn, Elias gave a single order. "Bring us alongside. We'll push them forward." With a rumble, the Resolute Dawn pressed against the Valiant Star, using its bulk to shove the smaller vessel back on course. Other ships adjusted their formations, covering them. Together, they advanced again. And at that moment, the galaxy understood. It was not technology. It was not immunity. It was something simpler, something stronger. The humans were afraid, but they moved anyway. The aliens watching in silence trembled. For the first time, not from fear of the shroud, but from something else entirely, from wonder. The shroud pulsed like a living nightmare. Every wave that came from its dark core pressed harder against the human fleet. The closer they drew, the more unbearable it became. It was not just fear now. It was despair, hopelessness, and voices whispering that nothing mattered. On the bridge of the Resolute Dawn, Captain Elias Reese felt it like knives in his chest. His breathing grew shallow. His hands shook no matter how tightly he clenched them. Shadows seemed to stretch across the walls, moving when he was not looking. He knew it was not real, but his body did not care. Every nerve screamed that he was about to die. Still, he stood tall. Status? He forced out. His crew looked broken. The science officer's hands trembled so much he could barely read the display. The navigator was pale, sweat dripping down his face. One young comms officer quietly wept, shoulders shaking as she tried to keep her voice steady. "Engines holding," the navigator whispered. "Course steady. But crew condition declining," Elias nodded. He looked around at his people, ordinary men and women, not heroes, not machines. Each of them could collapse at any second, and yet none had left their posts. That was what mattered. Across the galaxy, alien fleets continued to watch. They were now days into the broadcast. Millions of beings on thousands of worlds tuned in to the human struggle. The images were unbearable, faces wet with tears, voices shaking with fear. People collapsing only to be lifted back up by comrades. Ambassador Lirin of the Kaleri whispered to herself, her voice filled with disbelief. "They are not fearless. They are drowning in fear, and yet they do not stop." The Zalarian commander who once mocked humans stared at the display, his scales pale. "When my soldiers felt even a fraction of this, they begged to be withdrawn. They screamed until we had no choice but to retreat." Ambassador Rello of the Ashel spoke slowly, his crystal form glowing faintly. "Humans are different. They do not resist fear. They live with it. They bend under it, but they do not break." For the first time, whispers of hope spread through the council chamber, back in the shroud's shadow. The human fleet pressed on, but the machine was not idle. As if sensing their persistence, its waves grew sharper. Hallucinations became worse. Crew members saw visions of home burning, families dying, friends accusing them of failure. The weight was unbearable. The stalwart Grace lost another third of its crew to unconsciousness. The Iron Resolve reported several suicides. Crew who could no longer endure the voices in their heads. Elias received the report with a heavy heart. He did not pretend they were unbreakable. He knew better. He gathered his officers and spoke. "We cannot deny it. We are not untouched. We are bleeding, losing people. This is not easy. But listen to me. Every single step forward matters. Every second we endure, we show the galaxy it is possible. Do not think of what we lose. Think of what we give." The officers nodded, eyes red, but determination flickered in their faces again. On the 5th day of their deep advance, disaster struck. The Valiant Star, the same ship that had been pushed forward earlier, finally broke. Its systems went dark, engines offline, crew unable to respond. Fear had crushed them beyond recovery. The vessel drifted into the path of the shroud's gravitational pull. Alarms blared across the human fleet. If the Valiant Star was lost, it would not only be the first casualty, it would break morale. The crew of every ship would feel that loss like a knife. "Helm," Elias shouted. "Bring us alongside them now." The Resolute Dawn surged forward, ignoring the screaming sensor's warning of dangerous proximity. Grappling beams locked onto the dead vessel. At the same time, two other ships, the Steel Horizon and the Aurora Light, moved in to stabilize it. Engines strained, power flickered, but together they dragged the drifting ship back into formation. Inside the council chamber, dozens of ambassadors leaned forward. They expected the humans to abandon the weak ship. It was the logical choice. One vessel lost was better than risking 3 more. But the humans refused. "They are saving them," whispered the Tharkul delegate in awe. "They would rather risk everything than leave them behind." "Madness," muttered the Kolari ambassador. But there was no scorn in her voice anymore. Only wonder. The fleet continued its crawl forward. Hours felt like days. Days felt like years. But even as they suffered, small acts of courage shone like stars. On the Iron Resolve, a medic who could barely stand stayed awake for 72 hours, tending to crewmates while whispering calming words to keep them anchored. On the Aurora Light, a group of engineers sang Old Earth songs over the combs to remind everyone they were not alone. On the Stalwart Grace, a dying officer recorded a message: "If you can hear this, know that fear can be beaten. Even if I don't see the end, you can..." These stories spread instantly to the rest of the fleet, and then through the broadcast to the galaxy itself. For the first time, alien worlds saw humans not as reckless Deathworlders, but as something else. Beings who could be afraid, broken, bleeding, and still move forward. Inside the shroud, its waves reached a peak. The humans were now closer than any species had ever dared. Its black metal walls glowed with strange light, and the fear waves pounded like endless storms. Crews lay collapsed in corridors, only half conscious. Officers spoke through cracked voices, fighting to stay awake. On the bridge of the Resolute Dawn, Elias forced his body to stay upright. His vision blurred, his chest ached, but he looked forward at the looming shape of the shroud. He whispered to himself, barely audible, "One more step. Just one more step," and his ship obeyed. Across the galaxy, a strange thing began to happen. On distant fleets that had once frozen at the shroud's influence, alien captains began to stir. They saw the humans crawling forward, step by painful step, and they felt shame. If fragile humans could endure, why couldn't they? A captain of the Zalorian Guard ordered his ship's engines reignited. A Tharkul battleship tested its systems again. Even a few veiled Dominion vessels, once broken by terror, began to send signals. "We are ready to move." The humans did not know it yet, but their persistence was spreading like fire. Elias stood once more before the combs, his face pale, eyes tired, but his voice steady. "To all who watch us, understand this. Fear does not disappear. It will never disappear, but fear does not command us. We choose our steps. We choose our direction, and we choose to move forward." The galaxy listened. Some wept, some trembled, but none could deny the truth. The shroud pulsed again, sending the strongest wave yet. The entire human fleet groaned under its weight. Lights flickered, engines strained. Elias braced himself, waiting for collapse. But instead, a new signal came. "This is the Zalorian ship, Kezra. We are moving. We will follow you." Then another. "This is the Tharkul warship, Dominion's pride. We will not sit idle anymore. Lead the way, Deathworlders." And another. "Veiled Dominion vessel, Sorrow's End. If you can endure, then so can we." One by one, alien ships that had once been frozen by terror began to stir. They activated engines, turned their bows toward the shroud, and slowly, hesitantly moved. The human fleet had taken the first steps. Now, others followed. The shroud's black form loomed larger with every mile. From a distance, it looked like a fortress of impossible geometry, metal and energy folded in ways no mind could easily comprehend. But the human fleet pressed closer, each ship battered, each crew trembling, each heartbeat echoing fear. And yet every step they took was deliberate. Captain Elias Reese stood on the bridge of the Resolute Dawn, watching his fleet move forward like a river of light through darkness. Sensors reported the terrifying strength of the shroud's psychic waves. Crew members collapsed, their minds screaming. Lights flickered. Alarms sounded. Systems failed. Yet they continued. Damage reports, Elias asked. The communications officer hesitated, voice shaking. Resolute Dawn sustaining heavy structural strain. Crew casualties rising. Fear levels reaching extreme thresholds. Elias nodded slowly. He knew, he felt it himself. Every nerve in his body wanted to flee. His vision blurred. Shadows flickered at the corners of his eyes. And yet, he did not stop. He had given one order: forward. One step at a time. In the observation stations scattered around the Shroud system, alien commanders held their breath. They had never seen anything like this. The humans were not perfect. They were far from it. Every officer, every soldier, every pilot was trembling. Yet still, they advanced. This cannot be, hissed a Kalari admiral. They are all broken. They are broken, Ambassador. Rello of the Ashel replied softly. But they are still moving. Do you understand? They bend, they stagger, they suffer. And yet, they move forward. That is something no other species has ever done. The Zalarian commander's jaws snapped shut. They should have died by now. Our soldiers could not have endured a tenth of this. And yet, they press on. A few alien captains began whispering orders to their fleets. Engines roared. Weapon systems came online. Even though fear lingered in their minds, they realized something new. If humans could endure this, perhaps they could as well. Inside the fleet, a critical moment arrived. The Aurora Light, one of the human heavy cruisers, shuddered violently. The hull strained under the psychic wave. Sensors showed multiple systems offline. Crew members screamed and collapsed simultaneously. It seemed the vessel might drift helpless into the Shroud's gravitational pull. Elias did not hesitate. He looked around his bridge, eyes meeting each officer's tired gaze. Linked to them. All ships, linked together. We will not lose them. Forward, all of you. A network of energy tethers connected the fleet. The Resolute Dawn anchored itself to the Aurora Light, while nearby ships formed a protective wall. Engineers and crew worked in tandem, defying exhaustion, fear, and pain. Slowly, painfully, they pushed the heavy cruiser forward. The moment lasted hours. The Shroud's waves pressed harder with each second, trying to break them. It whispered of hopelessness, despair, and futility. Yet still, they moved. On distant worlds, aliens watched the scene unfold. Some cried openly. Others trembled in awe. Even those who had mocked humanity before were silent now. Elias opened a channel across the fleet, broadcasting a single message to everyone watching. Understand this. Fear is real. Pain is real. The unknown is real. But paralysis is a choice. You can fall, you can cry, you can tremble and still, you can take one more step. That is the power we carry. That is what we are showing you today. The voice reached not just humans, but every alien watching. Across the galaxy, beings whispered among themselves. They had felt the Shroud's terror firsthand. They had seen their own fleets crumble. And yet humans, ordinary humans, trembling and broken, moved forward. Then it happened. The Resolute Dawn approached the Shroud closer than any ship had ever dared. Its bridge was crowded with unconscious and barely conscious officers. Lights flickering, alarms screaming. Sensors reported core integrity declining. Every system groaned. Every heartbeat felt like an eternity. Elias took a deep breath. All ships, follow my lead. We take the step that matters. With that, the human fleet surged forward together. It was not a sudden rush. It was not a charge. It was deliberate. A single step into the unknown, each ship moving as one. Despite fear, despite exhaustion, despite pain, the Shroud pulsed in response. Its psychic waves intensified to levels never recorded before. Some human ships rocked violently. Several vessels drifted at the edge of collapse. Crew members screamed, and some fell unconscious. But no one turned back. Alien eyes across the galaxy widened. On the observation stations, a stunned silence filled the room. For decades, no species had dared such a step. And yet humans had not only dared, they had done it. One by one, alien fleets began to react. The first to move was the Zalorian cruiser, Cathral. Its captain had resisted for days, frozen in place, paralyzed by the shroud's waves. But seeing the humans press forward, he ordered engines to fire. Hesitantly at first, the ship edged toward the shroud. Then another Tharkul battleship followed, and then a veiled Dominion cruiser. Fear still gripped them, but the humans' example shattered the illusion that movement was impossible. Step by step, ship by ship, alien fleets began to follow. It was not perfect. Many ships staggered. Some lost systems. Some crews collapsed, but the act of moving forward spread like wildfire. One step forward became a chain reaction. On board the Resolute Dawn, Elias looked around. His crew was near collapse. Medics were working non-stop. Engineers were shouting over alarms. Yet determination shone in every face. They had taken the first step that mattered, the step that would inspire the galaxy. Look at them, Elias said quietly to himself. They are following. And indeed they were. Alien fleets moved forward, some unsure, some faltering, but all inspired. For the first time since the shroud awoke, the galaxy felt the stirrings of hope. Fear was not gone. It was still there, gnawing, whispering, trying to stop them. But the humans had proven that fear could be faced and that even trembling hands could take action. Hours passed. Days felt like weeks. The human fleet, now accompanied by alien ships, moved deeper into the shroud's range. Some vessels were barely functional. Crew members were exhausted beyond comprehension. Yet Elias kept moving. He opened the comms to the combined fleet, both human and alien. To everyone here, we are afraid. We are exhausted. We have lost some of our own. But fear does not control us. We take one step forward, and the galaxy follows. If we stop, all is lost. If we move, even trembling, we win something greater than victory. We show that courage is real. We show that life chooses to move, even in the face of the impossible. The words echoed across the fleet, and for the first time, not a single vessel hesitated. Every ship moved forward in imperfect formation, trembling, scared, human, and alien together. The shroud pulsed again. Its waves lashed, but the ripple of movement could not be stopped. Humans had taken the first crucial step. Aliens had followed. And though none could know it yet, the shroud was beginning to falter, not from weapons, not from attack, but from an act it had never faced, determined life refusing to yield to fear. Captain Elias Reese leaned back, exhausted, sweat dripping down his face. He whispered to the bridge. One step. That's all it took. One step. And now, we keep going. The shroud had never faced anything like this. For centuries it had lain dormant, its power unchallenged. Entire civilizations had fallen under its waves of fear, their ships drifting helpless, their minds broken. It had been a force of terror, absolute and unrelenting. Until now, the human fleet, battered and trembling, pressed forward. Crew members clung to consoles with white-knuckled hands, their bodies exhausted, their minds screaming in terror. But the human ships moved as one, and behind them, alien fleets followed, step by painful step. Inspired by the courage of the Deathworlders, the shroud pulsed violently. Psychic waves hammered every vessel, every mind. Some humans collapsed, crying out. Some alien officers panicked. Alarms blared in a chorus of chaos. Yet the fleet continued. On the bridge of the Resolute Dawn, Captain Elias Reese stood tall, despite exhaustion. His uniform was damp with sweat, hair plastered to his forehead, eyes red from sleepless strain. He looked across his crew, every face pale, every body trembling, and he spoke quietly but firmly. Hold fast. We are close. We endure together. Every second we endure, every step we take, we change the galaxy. The human fleet reached the heart of the shroud's influence. It was a swirling mass of black metal and light, pulsating like a living heart of fear. The shroud's waves reached peaks no sensors could measure. Some crews fell unconscious immediately. Systems failed. Lights flickered. Yet humans kept moving. They did not scream. They did not fight. They simply advanced. One step. Then another. Pain, fear, exhaustion, they felt it all. But they did not stop. Elias opened a comm channel across the combined fleet. His voice was strained, shaking from fatigue and the shroud's psychic pressure. Yet calm and commanding. To everyone watching, this is not bravery in the absence of fear. This is courage in its presence. Fear is real. Pain is real. Loss is real. And yet life moves forward. Take this step with us and know that fear cannot command you. Across alien worlds, across stations, across fleets, beings watched. Some wept openly. Some whispered prayers. Some simply stared in awe. The humans were ordinary beings, broken, tired, trembling, and yet unstoppable. Then, the moment arrived. The human fleet reached the shroud itself. It was impossible, terrifying, beyond comprehension. Its surface shimmered with energy. Shadows moved like living things. Its waves struck with maximum force. Systems failed. Crew members fell unconscious. Alarms blared, and Captain Elias Reese stepped forward, not in arrogance, not in defiance, but in determination. He gave a single command: all ships, one step forward. The fleet obeyed. The step was small, imperceptible to anyone watching casually, but it was the step that mattered. As the human ships advanced, something unprecedented occurred. The shroud's energy flickered. Its waves faltered. Crew members on the Resolute Dawn felt a sudden lightness in their minds. For the first time, the machine's terror was not absolute. Alien ships, inspired by the human example, surged forward. Fear still lingered, but for the first time, it no longer commanded them. They moved. Step by step, fleet by fleet, species by species. The shroud pulsed violently one last time, and then it began to break. The collapse was gradual, but unstoppable. Black metal warped and cracked. Energy pulses fractured and fizzled. Psychic waves lost cohesion. The shroud emitted a long, low hum, almost like a dying heartbeat, and then silence. Silence that was not terror. Silence that was not despair. Silence that was profound relief. The human fleet floated in the aftermath, trembling but alive. Crew members wept openly. Engineers clung to consoles, laughing through tears. Medics tended to unconscious crew, speaking words of comfort. And across the galaxy, alien fleets hovered in awe. They had witnessed something no species had ever seen. Humans had endured fear unlike any other, and they had advanced where all others had failed. In the council chamber on Laura Prime, ambassadors stared at the screens in stunned silence. Lyran of the Clary whispered, almost to herself, They actually did it. They survived. They advanced. Rello of the Ashel's crystal skin glowed faintly. Not only survived, they moved the galaxy forward. They gave hope to those who had none. Even the Zalarian commander, who had mocked humans at first, was speechless. We have underestimated them. And that was the truth. For the first time, the galaxy understood the power of the humans. Not strength, not speed, not weapons. Courage, perseverance, the ability to act step by step. Even when every fiber of their being screamed to stop, Captain Elias Reese sent a final broadcast. His voice was calm, yet carried across every fleet and station. To all who watched, we are not invincible. We are not without fear. We are not perfect, but we choose to move forward. Every step matters. Every act of persistence shapes the future. Today, the galaxy learned something important. Courage is stronger than fear. Unity is stronger than despair. And life, in the face of terror, always chooses to endure. The message echoed across the stars. Aliens wept, humans cheered, and the silence that had gripped the galaxy for so long finally broke. Days later, as the fleets returned home, the galaxy changed. Alien commanders spoke openly of humanity as a species unlike any other. Deathworlders, they said, had once been a word of fear and mockery. Now it was a word of respect. Some whispered, "The species that moved when all others trembled."
Oh.
The Galactic Council convened again. Representatives from dozens of species admitted openly, humans had changed the course of history. Their example had rekindled hope in fleets that had frozen in terror. Their persistence had shattered the shroud without firing a single weapon at it. Ambassador Rello of the Ashel stood to address the council. The humans have shown us something greater than any weapon or strategy. They have shown us courage. They have shown us that even when fear grips the heart, it can be overcome. The galaxy owes them recognition. Hand recognition came. Planets sent congratulations, letters of respect, and new alliances were formed inspired by humanity's example. On Earth, humans returned quietly. There were no parades, no great ceremonies. To them, it was simply their duty, the same way they had survived their harsh world for millennia. But in the hearts and minds of the galaxy, humanity was no longer just another species. They were the spark that broke the silence. Children in distant systems learned the story of the Deathworlders who had advanced one step forward when all others faltered. Academies studied human tactics not for combat, but for resilience, persistence, and courage. Philosophers debated their strength. Scientists marveled at their willpower. Humans, who had trembled, who had cried, who had suffered, were now remembered for their strength. Not because they were fearless, but because they had acted despite fear. Captain Elias Reese stood on the bridge of the Resolute Dawn one final time. The shroud's ruins drifted behind him, harmless now. He looked at his weary crew. Every face was pale, every body exhausted, yet every heart was proud. He whispered softly, "One step was enough. Just one step." And in that moment, across the galaxy, the message was clear. Even in the darkest fear, even against the impossible, life chooses to move forward. And humanity had shown the galaxy how the silence had broken.